the wisdom that they're sharing with us per their request. The other thing, and again, because we're so limited with how this flow of connection can actually happen through this technology, what we have are those squares of screens. So we would really love and encourage everyone to have your video on. We know that some of you may not be in an environment that is conducive to that, and we understand. To the degree that you feel it's possible, it will really be wonderful to see you and connect that way. And last but not least, it's great I'm seeing everybody's names. One thing I suggest is if you want to take some homework home after today, look up what's the name of the indigenous nation that you are living on right now. And you see that I added Lenape next to my name. Again, just bringing it more close to home, where we are, and then sharing it with others. And one last thing around the chat, let's not use that unless we've requested by the organizers of the presenters. So taking a deep breath and moving on to Genro, I believe.
Thank you, Rami. And Roshi Genro Gaunt will speak to us about the 3 tenets.
Good day, everybody. Wonderful to be with you in this retreat. I've been asked to say just a few words to remind us about the 3 tenets, which we hope to maintain, not only during our time together here, but every moment of our lives. So the first tenet is not knowing. And not knowing is coming from a place of non-thinking, no conceptualization, no busy mind. Coming from a place of quiet and calm and depth that's unhindered by movement in our minds. Our quiet, original self manifesting all the time. It's really here with us always. And with the breath, deeply in and out, we can access it. Second tenet is bearing witness. Bearing witness is really paying attention, deep attention, awareness with all our heart and all our mind, body, spirit to what's happening right now in this very moment, without judgment, without criticism, without comment. We maintain a mind of no comment. And just really paying deep attention, if we really do it, if we really concentrate altogether on the person who's speaking of the thing that's happening, whatever it is, we'll wipe out that barrier between us and our present experience and be one with that. If it's a person speaking, we'll feel as though we're speaking their words and we're feeling what they're feeling directly. It's truly possible. And out of that comes loving action. And loving action can be anything. It can be loving action towards ourselves. What do we need in this moment to be in good spirit? Food, water, rest, whatever it may be. For our neighbor, for our friend, for our family, what do they need? How can we serve them? Most simply. We don't have to be a member of a big nonprofit organization in order to give and serve. We can do it all the time. So let's do it lovingly, and let's really enjoy today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Genro. Next, we want to begin with a little bit differently than we did yesterday. And Roshi Eve Marco will introduce our next step here.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Basically, I said earlier to the small group of organizers that usually, as I said yesterday, the place is a very important thing in bearing witness retreats. So usually the place is either Wyoming, South Dakota, the Black Hills, reservations. This year, the place is here, this Zoom room. So you are the place and we are the place. This is our place this year for this retreat. So we're not just bearing witness to what happened years ago or even, but we're bearing witness to what's happening in your life as well. And these are very intense times, very difficult, challenging, and very, very rich times. So we'd like to ask you to please speak up and ask questions now. We want to start with questions. You can ask questions about the presentations yesterday, or you can, in a very basic way, say what it is you're seeking by coming to this program for 5 days. What wisdom are you seeking? What do you wish our Lakota elders to address, to teach? What do you think we need to hear from them this week? And you can ask it in the form of questions, you could just in the form of requests. And just really, we're just going to do it one after the next. And I have faith that they will be answering all these things within the next several days, not right away everything today. But we will give it a bit of time now. So if you would like to express what it is you're hoping to get or what is really on your mind, what is important for you to hear from them, please, I'm going to shift this over to Jeff, and he and Kaylee will organize the muting and the unmuting so that we can all hear our own ingredients that are in this retreat this week.
Manny, if you would, if you're ready to present. And as Manny's getting ready, just thank you everybody for your questions and your deep sharing and caring. It's really, really touching, and it really changes the feel and the complexion and the heart of this Zoom session. It makes it less a Zoom session and more a circle. So thank you all.
Jeff, maybe before we move to Manny, as Manny prepares, maybe we can just take a moment and just sit with everything we just heard, all the questions and feelings, just for a moment.
I think that's a nice idea, if we can just breathe through our hearts for a minute or two. Okay. Thank you all for your stillness. Manny, if you'd like to unmute, and I'll mute myself and you can take over here.
Okay. Now, Kiop talk. Hello. Good morning to everybody. Um, I appreciate all of you that are very good listeners. Um, and it's another day that our Creator has given us today. But today I wanted to share um, the foundation of a Lakota nation, are the Teoshpais. And I family belong to two Teoshpais. And one is my father's side, it's called Maspeginaka. And that's what the meaning is where they wear their like a headband and in the fort, and then there's a round shiny metal around their forehead headband. That's what the Maspeginaka is. So that I am from that Teoshpai. And my mother's side, we are from the Upranglishka or spotted elk. And in books that you read, our grandpa is also known as Bigfoot. And as you know, my mother is descendant of the Wounded Knee massacre. And so um, that's a long story too. And but those two are the main Teoshpai family belongs to. And you can belong to more than two Teoshpai. But the Teoshpai, they work together and try to live according to their values. And to this day and age, um, for example, we have horses, and because of Renee's dream of horses, we have horses, and we literally give horse to whoever needs a horse. And just yesterday, one came back that we loaned. I guess we gave or loaned out, but those are important things with the Teoshpai project. And I was going to talk about that later, how the plan is to do that today. But the Teoshpai is a political, social, emotional, and spiritual purposes. They're together for that. Teoshpais existed since the Ocheti Shakoi campfires came into existence. And that's told in the stars how Ocheti Shakoi was formed. In one of the other star knowledge presentations, that's mentioned in there, where it was written in the stars, and then we, 7 council fires were established way back when. So Teoshpais today, they appoint a leader. So today I kind of take that role and do your utmost what you can do. But if I don't produce what the Teoshpai wants, they can replace me anytime. And that's it. They don't have to go through a election process or anything. It's just straightforward. I don't do the job that I was supposed to do, I can be replaced just like that. No question that. the people will see it. And so one of the other important aspects is the other very important foundation for the Teoshpai is the sacred pipe. And we have pipe keepers within Teoshpai. And if they don't have a pipe keeper, they will appoint one, because you have to have Teoshpai, a sacred pipe, a chanumpa, for a Teoshpai to exist. So with that, we talked about the white buffalo calf woman yesterday, which she brought the sacred pipe of the Lakota Nation. And with that, she brought the 7 ceremonial rites that we still practice today, so the Lakota people can survive in the 21st century. And very quickly, the one is Inipi, is the sweat lodge. The other one is Nari, Yuha, ghost keeping the spirit. Vision quest, Hunka. We went through with that Hunka ceremony with our Zins, which was awesome. Making relatives. And the Sundance, singing over her the ritual passage of the young women. And the last one is the ball throwing. So she brought all those and gave instructions way back when, and we're still practicing. So, Teoshpais always had treaties. Treaties are called Wola Kota. Wola Kota encompasses and covers everything. We made Wola Kota with the Zen, and we made Wola Kota with the United States government with our treaties. The Wola Kota is a very important process and a deal, I guess you could say. And who's gonna keep the deal on and who's gonna make good the promises. So, and then that leads to sovereignty. The Lakota Teoshpais have always retained their sovereignty. In Lakota, that's called Oyate Chawosh Ake. And we still retain that. And some of the treaty people of 1868, some of our grandfathers refused to sign that. Mainly Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, our grandpas, because they knew what was coming. They did not want to give the Black Hills up. They did not want to give it away. So as you know, we're still in litigation with that. And now the account grew to $1 billion. And there's always, within the Ocheti Shakoi Council Fire, there's always a tribe that wants to accept that money. So recently, Oglala, and these are tribal councils that are doing this, which they had no part in our treaties. this day and age, only Teoshpa signed the treaty, and non-signers. So, uh, so that's part of that. So all of our leaders and our elders acknowledge the public value of the Lakota Nation. And then that's very hard to keep. One of them is Wowichala, a faith keeper. And the other one is Wikota Wachi, our mind. Wichoichage, the next generation. Are we going to leave a legacy for our next generation, for our children and grandchildren, and the ones that are yet to come? How are we going to leave a legacy for them and survive, and even survive this pandemic that we have now? How are we to leave them a spiritual knowledge that they need to keep going and value themselves, and that they were brought here for a purpose, not to go and commit suicide. Long ago, we had a whole new different perspective on suicide. As you know, during the Battle of Little Bighorn, my grandpa and dad used to say, we had the suicide boys. Oh, so what did they do? Did they kill themselves? No. There were 2 Cheyennes and 3 Lakotas that gave themselves up, and they rode into the battle, first ones into the battle, and gave themselves up. And then the next group of Lakotas attacked. So that's kind of like what the suicide meant to us. But in that frame, it changed. It changed because our way of life changed, our schools changed, and, and our young people, they don't value themselves. And one of the main things is the identity. Who are they? Who am I? And those things are very important that they need to know today in order for them to do. So, and the last one is the Wopre, our natural law. Today we stray from our natural laws, and it's hard to go back. For example, our daughters said, "Oh, I have a boyfriend." Well, what's his name? And reluctantly, they give us the name of who it is, and because of their relationship, they might be related. And if they are, they need to know. And if they don't believe you, you bring out the family tree and tell them how they are related, and they cannot live together. That was one of the custom laws that we had. So getting back to the Teoshpais, we have been meeting for over 10 years, 15 years. And so the Lakota campfires in the Lakota Nation made up of several bands. Each band is made up of Teoshpai. And today we're losing our Teoshpai names. And I'm fortunate that my father kept telling me when I was younger, he said, Maspreganaka Teoshpai Elitaha. I am from the Maspreganaka Teoshpai. And he kept telling me that when I was younger, and then I didn't know what it meant until later today. I remember what it meant. And so that is what so a um, Tioshpai, if you break the word Tioshpai, it's Tiospaye. So if you break that Tioshpai up, the Ti, it means to live and dwell as in a specific place. Oshpaye is a group of people separated from the main group of people. We knew long ago that certain geographic areas can only sustain a certain number of people. So the Teoshpai moved. Summer camp, winter camp, spring camp. And that's how we did it. We never had a civil war because our custom laws were strict, our spiritual laws were strict, and our natural laws helped. And I'm gonna stop here. And at this time, so the Teoshpai, the Lakota, the Nakota, and Dakota nations are held by the foundations of the Teoshpai. Oh, that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. I think we can take a few questions specific to Manny's presentation, if you'd like. We'll only have a few minutes, but if someone has a question you'd like to raise your hand. Okay, I don't see anyone with a question right now. Wait just a.
Jeff, I have a question.
Who's that?
Rami.
Oh, hi, Rami.
Manny, I wonder if you can speak more a little bit about the subject you spoke about, which was the suicides of the men, and because it just also came up in one of the questions of the participants, and I'm also wondering if you can anything you can share about what is it like now, and how is that relating to that historical piece, but also how is it now?
Okay, suicide had a very different conception from back then to now. And there's a story about a woman that a war party went out and her husband didn't come back. And so she missed her husband so bad that she stood on the hill and she sang. As she sang, she moved closer and closer to the cliff, and finally she went over the cliff. So that kind of suicide is way different from what we know today. Our suicide rate is we cannot it's high. Um, but our suicide, it was, and our elders tell us, and that if you commit suicide, our spirit goes to a dark place, and they stay there. And so these are some of the teachings that our elders tell us. But um, back in the old days too, we never had jails because of our very strong custom law, and we never had orphans. The orphans were usually taken up by a family, maybe a relative, to raise as their own. Lakota, we call them Abelenija. And we had no manners for our elderly. Courts, drugs, and juvenile delinquency. We never had those. And so our suicide rate, and we're down. It's practically zero back then day. The mother had the child, or a son, maybe born to the Lakota Nation, and the son has to go through his growing years, his teachings, and ultimately defend the Lakota Nation as a warrior. That's what the ultimate goal is. So we must reteach and re-educate our children today, and especially our Lakota language. So I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit. So, the context is the natural laws that we have, and it goes with and we have to acknowledge these public values of a Lakota Nation. And so this is what our elders have in their teachings to transfer to the younger generation. And it's connected to the natural laws, and connected to nature. We're always connected to nature and what the nature brings. So I hope I answered that.
Thank you, Manny. Violet, if you are ready, can we ask you to share your presentation? There you go.
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so as Manny was talking, I thought about Artioshpaye, how important Artioshpaye is. My understanding of this is same as Manny's, of course. As we were growing up, I come from the Wasu Tioshpaye. We had a grandmother, her name was Wasu. Wasu was a medicine woman, and a lot of people the older people, some of them remember her. She died in 1945. But I come from the Wasu Tioshpaya. And how we're becoming more disconnected today is obvious in that we hardly have anybody saying they belong to this Tioshpaya or that Tioshpaya. So I belong to the Wasu Tioshpaya, the Hale Tioshpaya. My great grandmother was and her family are the origin of that. And so we have names connected with the Tioshpaya, a whole bunch of different last names, connected, but the Tioshpaya is hail, like as in the storm hailing, except they spell it in different ways. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with my presentation. Yesterday, I asked you to think about an hourglass because our worldview pertains to that, and we call it what is part of our worldview. Okay, not we have Mitakoyasi is our philosophy in life. Everything is related, thereby making everything interrelated. To understand this interrelatedness, you have to look at it as a triangle or a pyramid that is on this earth, reflected in the sky that way. And all life within it. And everything is life. It begins with our origin story. And as Manny's talking, I've been taking notes about, what is it that I want to share most at this time. What is more contemporary? What happened? So I think about these things that we are experiencing today. Yesterday, I told you a story about a pandemic long before colonization, back in the old days, the days when our ancestors still lived in teepees and earth lodges. And these little lodges that they made temporary. So I think in a way, our ancestors had motels in their travels where they find the willow. In these willows, they have the wildlife, and they weren't wildlife. They were shingumantu, coyotes, yashle, rabbits, mashtinchala. They made a home within there, so there's a circle that's already there. They use that, and they put the willow together, and they cover it. And those are temporary for overnight, maybe for the children, maybe for the elderly. But as they traveled, that's what they lived in, so temporary shelters. Those were, some of the ways that when they were running away from this pandemic over here. How do we live through this pandemic? How do we live through this? Okay, so my talk today is going to be about maybe how do we live through COVID-19, following how our ancestors lived. The dry cedar is really important. Every year at the end of the summer, I went with my grandmother, maybe in the fall, and we gathered cedar. When we gathered the cedar, she took it home and dried it. And she would put it in a paper box, taking it off the branches, and put it in the paper box. And we burned that all year long. And sometimes she'll run out during the year. But that especially in the winter months, when Wazia came, when it started getting cold, the cold winds start coming, they burned that on the wood stoves that they had. So I'm talking contemporary, but I'm taking you back to 1950s when I was a child, when I was so they burned that so the smoke evaporates into all of the air, killing any germs that might be in our house. When we had colds, I actually seen them, you know, and as a child, I wasn't grossed out about it. As an adult, yeah, I am. A skunk, they kill a skunk and they take the hide and they roast it. Well, of course, they clean it all out and they roast that skunk. What comes out is a lot of oil. That oil from the skunk. When our nose start running, we start coughing, guess what our medicine was? That oil from the skunk. They take a dab of it with a tablespoon or teaspoon, and they hold it over the fire and let it melt. And when it melted, guess who got to drink it? Me and my brother. You know, we had to. Today I'm healthy. I don't have diabetes, and I better knock on wood. I don't have cancer. I don't have anything, any major illness wrong with me. Because I think that our grandma did these things as a child as I was growing up. I did the things that my grandma did in my own life after I became an adult. I make cedar berry tea. I drink that. I make sage tea. I drink that to keep healthy. All of these things that there was a leaf, and I was going to post that on. There's a leaf, a big leaf that they chew when they have cold, and it cleared your lungs. And I've been trying to remember what that leaf is, and I can't remember it. But I will, you know, I'm searching, not only in my mind, but I'm asking my relatives, the ones who would remember, and see if we can find that leaf, especially today, you know, with these children, with COVID, the way it affects the children. We don't know what's wrong, you know. And we all made it through some really bad flus not too long ago, you know? And those were pandemics, but it's not like this COVID-19. And so one of the things that they did was they burned cedar outside, outdoors. They made a fire. They made a little campfire, and they burned those cedar branches over that. Not dried. They went to cut the cedar and they put it over that. So as it's burning, it's drying and the smoke is going off into the air, you know, and that purifies the air around us. And that's what they did when they were moving away from that pandemic. They smoked their belongings, she said. Grandma told me that. They smoked from the fire of the earth. There's something called chajota, the ashes from the fireplace or anything like that. You put it on your hands and you rub it all over your clothes. You know, nobody wants to go around dirty looking like that, right? But they take that and they carry that as well. And they put it on, like on the wood when they put their teepee up, the teepee poles. Things like that prevented the carrying of this germ. Today, we don't have to do that because we use Clorox. And we use, you know, we clean all these places. We have a way, you know, that we don't have to do what our grandma did in the past. So that was a little bit of what I wanted to go into, but I wanted to continue with this, how do we stay connected? How do we become decolonized? You know, we live in a dual society as Native Americans, a dual society. They made us become members of the United States, if I'm going to put it, you know, they made us be citizens of the United States back in 1924. Prior to that, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our ancestors were not part of that. 1924. From then, we, the descendants from that time, born after, who were living in 1924 and born after, became, in a sense, we were becoming more colonized. But because of this dualism, because of this way that was given to us, that we were born into, we had our traditional ways, we had our language. I was born into the traditional way. My first language is Lakota. Lakota is how we really say it, Lakota. And at a certain age, we have to go to school. Here comes the dualism. So in school, we had to learn English. And in school, if we didn't learn how to talk that language, we were punished in different ways. One of the ways that I was punished for not knowing the language is washing my mouth out with soap, a bar of soap. The nun grabbed you like this, put your head up, open your mouth, you don't know what she's saying, right? So she forces your mouth open like this, forces it. And before you could close it, she has that soap in her hand and she sticks it in here and makes sure she rubs it on your teeth. Not knowing English, I didn't know why she was doing that at first. The first time it happened to me, I was 4 years old. And I didn't want to go back to summer school at St. Joseph's Indian School at that time. When we came home, I told my grandma, they're mean over there. I don't want to go over there. Lila Shicham. We have those women with long black robes, they tortured us. So from then on, I didn't go to school until I was 8 years old. This dualism began before that. My second sacred language is Latin, church Latin. Our people were forced to choose a church. Forced, but they had a choice. The two churches that existed, three actually, one was called Congregational, one was called Episcopalian, and one was Catholic. Our medicine woman, Unchiwasu, she chose Catholic for us. So we learned Latin. We learned to speak and we had to understand. The father spoke Lakota, English, and Latin. He taught us the Latin prayer in Lakota, the Lord's Prayer. We could recite it, just like we could recite it in Latin, but we couldn't say it in English, not at that time. We learned the Mass, which is an hour long and repetitive. Repetition is important, was important back then in the church. So we had to learn Latin in church. I love Latin. I love the church. In the 1960s, they changed it to English only law. Many of our grandmas went away from the church at that time because they could no longer understand what it was about. Because it changed. By that time, I understood English and forced to learn the Lord's Prayer. I was able to continue going to church until I was 18, faithfully. This is what our traditional grandmothers taught us, to have that faith, to know that our word for our creator, Wakantanka, is the same as God, creator. To know that Father is also part of that language. So in my brain, I was able to connect English into my Lakota and Latin church upbringing, but I couldn't apply it to my schooling. In our schooling, and I think it's important for some of you that are new here, in our schooling, again, at a mission school, if I didn't know a word, if the students didn't know a word in English, the nun came up to you, put out your hand like this, put it out. She had a ruler, a board ruler with a metal edge, whacked our hands for not knowing an English word, for not knowing how to read a word, or even not knowing how to read. I went back to that school after I tried first grade at home. It wasn't first grade, it was called primary. I went to the boarding school, to the mission school. And at the mission school, experienced more of that torture. Eventually learning to read. At that time, I was a child. Church was still in Latin. I stopped speaking Lakota. I couldn't speak English. So on Sundays, I think I sang the loudest. I think I prayed the loudest. Colonization broke traditional ways. In many places, the worst, I think, is breaking our spirit as children. Well, we went back because we had to. Dual citizenship had two requirements. One of those is all children have to be in school legally. My grandmother kept me out legally as long as she could because we hid When we saw a car coming into our community, we ran down to the river and we hid. So these officials called social workers, nurses, teachers, BIA workers, when they came down, we hid. There wasn't anybody down there taking census. People knew we were there. We ran down to the river. We crossed the river and we hid in the trees behind there. We're children, so we played. Towards evening time, we go back and we go to the edge. We cross the river, we go back to the edge of the trees and we look. And we could see our grandma or somebody waving, you can come home, you can come home. So we go home. That's how we grew up. Our dual citizenship caused a lot of breaks in our society. And yet, in our tradition, it made you strong. When you're living it, you didn't know you were breaking. While you were living it, you didn't know you were in pain. While you were living it, you didn't realize all of this was going on. It isn't until you become an adult, when alcohol comes in, drugs come in, that you start hiding your pain. We become addicted very quickly. And someone never came back. Some of us came back. I came back. When I first came back, I came back in a Christian way. What the Christian pastor said, all of those Native American churches are work of the devil. I left because I loved my way of life. We have no concept of a devil in Lakota. We don't. Misunkalamani said, if you commit suicide, you go to a dark place. That's what we're taught. In that dark place, there are things that you ever feared in your life are all there. I think societies in general have a way of governing or a way of controlling the people through fear. So we have to fear something. We have to. I was suicidal. I had the thoughts, but I didn't want to go to that dark place because I know there's snakes and spiders and centipedes and all these things I'm afraid of. They're all there. So I don't want to go there. Imagine children, they don't want to go to hell, to that fiery place, because it's your soul that goes there. But some are in so much pain that they take it. I'll take it. I'll take that. In that dark place where suicide, as Lakota, you go to that dark place, your family has to pray you out of there. They have to pray you out of that place. If they forget about you, you're going to stay there. But we pray, especially when we know someone commits suicide. We put them in our prayers. Get away. Sorry, that's my grandson. We pray for them. We pray for them until our medicine men tell us they're okay. They made it to the other side. we live with historical trauma, and I'm sure Renee is going to talk about some of that. So I'm going to stop here and leave it so that I can, so that we can have questions or whatever. I tell you, it's, sometimes painful to talk about these things. But some of you have to see that pain. The effects of colonization is not a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Violet. Thank you so much. Let's take maybe one or two questions. We need to leave enough time, Renee.
Jeff, I would like to suggest that we have a moment, instead of taking questions, have a 1 or 2 moments of silence. I feel a lot has been shared, and I think it'd be nice to honor that. And since we are going to run out of time, we have more days. Maybe we could then go on to Renee.
You're suggesting perhaps go on to Renee tomorrow?
No, but not have questions, just have some silence for a minute or two.
Okay, thank you, Eve. That's a good idea. So let's share a moment of silence together. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Violet. I'm sure a number of people probably have questions for Violet, and if you can write them down and save for tomorrow, perhaps we can have some time tomorrow. Renee, if you're ready, we'll have up until the 1 o'clock your time. So, and maybe you could stop a few minutes beforehand in case there's questions, and we can have a final prayer. So, okay.
Greetings, everyone. Like when people speak from the heart, it touches the heart, heart language, and what Sikyapa shared. I didn't experience that, but I know my mom did, and I know her mom did. And so when she spoke it, it's in my genetic memory. And so I felt it. I felt it in my heart too, real strongly. And this generational trauma that we've experienced the massacres created a generational grief too. And that is with us today. It exists. And so, I'll reference the question that was asked about what's going on today with regards to the massacres and, or the not today, but with the Black Lives Matters, the issue with police brutality, you know, kneeling on a neck, and that there were massacres of our Black relatives too, as well as the massacres that we experienced. And I know that that is a really atrocious, uncomfortable issue that we live with. There are other people of color, minorities, what they've experienced too, living in the United States, the Latino, and there's the Asian. There's many of us that have had experiences with colonization, and it does affect us in our identity and our place of being here. To me, in our culture, when a young spirit comes to live here, we welcome them. We do a welcoming the spirit, and I know Sajepa knows of this ceremony too. Some families do it before the child is born, and they talk to the little baby within the mother's stomach, and some of them wait till the child is here, and then they do the welcoming ceremony. It's up to the Tioshpai, the way they choose to do it. But one of the main reasons for that ceremony is to validate that child's presence here, to say, Daya, Daya Yahi, we're glad you're here. You're welcome here. This place you've come to, we want you here. And for some of our young children now, there's no ceremony done like that for them. They start out in real province-stricken areas where our families are worried about how they're gonna feed their children. There's such high amounts of alcoholism and drug abuse, gambling addictions, that our children are getting forgotten. And that's why we do have the social ill of suicide. And like Sitjapan shared about suicide, I experienced that when I was in high school too. And I'll reference Gene Thinnock and Rick Thomas. They created an approach called the Red Road, Healing Through Feeling. And in their presentation, they talk about young children, how, our young Lakota children are really resilient and they can cope. They have to raise each other at times in the family situations. That's how our families are today existing. Not all of them, but some of them, they really don't have the culture. They don't have the language. They have young parents that are using alcohol. So they have children sometimes that are raising other children. The oldest sibling usually raises the younger children. It's really sad because there's such a breakdown in our families. And so our young people, they exist that way, and that's what is their purpose. To be here is because of their siblings. That's what it's come to. Those siblings are their mainstay. They, have that connectedness with each other. And it sounds really unbelievable, but it's true. The parents sometimes are just there in body only, creating that place of head of household, but actually it's usually the oldest child. And from my personal experience as growing up, sometimes when our parents would either leave to work or go to town, our older cousins took care of us. Our older cousins, or if our parents drank, went somewhere and they drank and partied, our older cousins were our parents and they looked out for us. And that's how we survived. That's how we got by. And so sometimes, you know, not all of our youth, but sometimes what Gene Thinnock and Rick Thomas said is they get to a point of browning out. People they reference, you know, that you burn out, but they use the term they brown out because, you know, we're Lakotas, we're brown, and they said that they get to that age, maybe 16, 17, 18, and they just, you know, they can't handle it anymore. They get to that point where, you know, you get to 17 or 18, you start shifting into a different cognitive way of thinking. And all of a sudden it comes to you, hits you that, you know, your conditions of living, that level of functioning in your community is sometimes um, really hard to cope with. And that's when they notice that a lot of young people do try to commit suicide. Between that, you know, 15 to 19 age range, that they're trying to, and this was like 20 years ago when they first started or presented their ideals for their Red Road approach. But nowadays, it's younger that are some children are trying to commit suicide. And the reason, you know, in working in the field that I did with severely emotionally disturbed children, you know, I've had the experience of, you know, going to chaperone, taking children to the Lakota Nation Invitational Basketball Tournament. And there was an experience happened there when the high school counselor called me up. I was there and she's like, I know you worked in mental health before, and I have a young teenage girl who was kind of bullied at the tournament, and now this evening she's wanting to commit suicide. She's being picked on, and so, you know, there's a lot of socioeconomic factors that some children don't have as much as others. Some don't dress as nice. And during that time when, you know, teenagers, you know, they really rely on their peers for validation and acceptance. And sometimes some of our children, they don't have that either. And then they don't have the home support, or they have a broken family, no parents are divorced, and then there's gangs. So, you know, and they bully people. So then this young girl was really like browning out. She was, you know, just not wanting to be here. So this counselor called me and she's like, I counsel children. She said, but this one, she's in crisis situation. She doesn't want to be here. She wants to leave. She wants to, you know, make her journey. What do I do? So I said, well, first of all, validate that she's feeling, you know, that way. Don't say it's okay that she wants to kill herself, but just validate her feelings. You know, she's upset, she's hurting, she's in pain, she's rejected, she doesn't feel accepted, you know. Acknowledge that. But importantly, I told her, tell her that, you know, that she is really, that you want to make a pact with her, that you want to make an agreement with her that she doesn't try to do anything to leave unless she talks to you first. You know, ask her if she has a plan. If she does, or if she doesn't, then tell her, before you make any plans, before you try to do anything, call me and talk to me first. I said, that way you can make a bond and connection with her and tell her that she's important to you and that you don't want her to leave. So, you know, to me, it's really important, you know, because when young people get to that point, you know, it's really serious. They don't want to be here. They don't feel they belong. Everything in this culture, in the colonized culture, says that you as a brown or a black person, you're not okay. you're only okay if you look like us. And, you know, for the people that want to be our friends or offer their friendship to us, the main thing I would say is accept us and validate us for who we are. And we can build trust from there. But I know a lot of our people, they don't have that trust with white people. I'm one of them. I mean, I'm friendly and I'm kind and I want to get along, but I still have a measure of mistrust, like a mistrust, because it's like, what do these people really want from us? You know, what are they? Why are they making this connection? You know, I know they want to bear witness to our experiences, but I'm always like, in my mind, because of the mistrust, because of our history, I'm thinking, I wonder when the other shoe is going to drop. I wonder when they're going to want more, or they're going to want this, or, you know, because that has been the nature of colonization. It's like, you're okay as long as you give me what I want. Yeah. And, you know, so I know I'm on a time limit here and I could go on, and I wanted to address Black and Native massacres. I'll just say one thing real quick about that. I got into a conversation with someone on Facebook, you know, just she was posting about Black, the situations, you know, and this was a couple of years ago. And so I kind of mentioned something about us natives too, you know, and the experiences we had. And she just like really attacked me like, yeah, but your experience isn't as bad as ours because, you know, we were made slaves and we had to work and we were killed. And I'm like, well, do you know our history? But I didn't want to argue with her on Facebook. It was a public comment. So I personally messaged her and I said, you know, I'm not into comparing pain. We all have pain. The ones who came and colonized us, they ran from pain. They brought what their pain was here to create something good and new. But they resented the ones who treated them that way. And when you resent someone, you become just like them. So we have to begin from a place of not hate, not resentment, not bitterness, but accepting people for the way they are. Try to understand why they're that way and create from a place of goodness and love and understanding and kindness. And probably at my time now, but that's what I wanted to share home.
Thank you, Renee. And we are right near the end of our time. Violet, may I ask you to share a prayer to end our session today?
Okay, can you hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Tungashila, Elder Chilwana, Ake Umnichua, Unglishtampi. Yuka Wopila, Daki Mongla Kapihina, Tungashila, Lechil. Nisha Nachumpi, no Yechumpi. Nala was in here, Takapina Tungashila, Tachina, Chantek Tamahelo Hiopina, Wokachnere, Upie. Geherchila ke umnichua ungliotaka he chantewashtia ungliotaka pikte. Naleam petuki wana wiwa wakata hia ki he yochate nahchi o apre ota. Yukha heli tima hel tukashila wichoda ani wonshila woki kopie o helogna wachake tukashila na meji kunye mitaku yasi.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being together today. And I won't say any more. We'll meet again tomorrow, Tuesday, at the same time, whichever time zone you're in. And we look forward to having you come back, and we'll continue tomorrow. So thank you all.